Properties of real numbers by Math Simplified. Okay, so what are properties of real numbers? A real number is any number that is rational or irrational. Real numbers have several properties that are helpful when rewriting and simplifying expressions. So there are four main properties of real numbers we have to know. The first one is commutative property, second one is associative property, third one is identity property, and the last one is inverse property, okay? So commutative property is just change the order of addition or multiplication does not change the result. So an example here is a plus b equals b plus a. So we change the order of these two these variables and it still gives us the same result. Okay, so how about associative property? Associative property is the way in which numbers are grouped does not change their sum or product. So here we have an example which is a plus b, which is inside of the parentheses, plus c, which is outside, is basically turned into a plus b plus c, which is inside of the parentheses. So you see how we change what's inside of the parentheses and what's outside, and it still gives us the same result? That's basically associative property. Okay, how about distributive property? Distributive property is multiplying a number by a sum is the same as multiplying the number by each addend and then adding the products. What you see here is a times b plus c. So a times b plus c is the same thing as multiplying a times b plus a times c. We're just basically taking out what's inside the parentheses and multiplying it by what's outside, which is a in this case. So that's distributive property. We're just distributing the a to what's inside the parentheses. Okay, what's identity property? So there are two main types of identity properties you have to know. It's additive identity, which is the sum of any number and 0 is a number. So for example, 5 plus 0 equals 5. And then multiplicative identity, which is the product of any number and 1 is a number. So remember, a times 1 equals a. Same thing as saying 5 times 1 equals 5. We get the same number as what we multiply by, okay? So now, next thing, properties of real numbers. So here we have an example which is 4 times 6 plus 3, which is inside the parentheses, is the same thing as 4 times 6 plus 4 times 3. That's just distributive property because we're distributing the 4, okay? Example 2, negative 7 plus 7 equals 0. That's just additive inverse property. We basically add the opposite of the first term, which is negative 7. We just basically add 7 and we get 0. So that's just additive inverse property. Okay, so now practice. Name the property as being used in each statement. 12 plus 8 plus 7 equals 12 plus 18 plus 7. So you see how we change what's inside the parentheses and what's outside? That's just associative property. Just think of associative property as what we change in the inside of the parentheses and what we change on the outside of the parentheses, okay? Then afterwards, we have 6 times 15 equals 15 times 6. Remember, that's commutative property. A lot of kids get confused with associative and commutative. Just think about associative, correlate it with parentheses, and commutative without parentheses. Commutative is just changing the order when there's no parentheses. So 6 times 15 equals 15 times 6. Exactly the same thing we would get in that scenario. Okay, so now 3 over 5 times 1 equals 3 over 5. Remember, that's just multiplicative identity, okay? Because any number times 1 is the same number, okay? The fourth one is 9 times x minus 2 equals 9x minus 18. Remember, it's distributive property. We're distributing the 9, okay? So now practice problems. Identify a property used in each equation. 7 plus 5 equals 5 plus 7. That's commutative property because we're changing the order, okay? Then 3x times 2 equals 2 times 3x. That would just be commutative property, okay? Then 4y plus 0 equals 4y. That would just be additive identity, okay? Then afterwards, 12 times 11 times 10 equals 12 times 11 times 10. That's associative property, okay? So now practice. Properties of real numbers. Identify a property shown. Okay, so here we have an example which is 4 times 7 times 25 equals 4 times 7 times 25. So remember, that's associative property because we're changing what's inside of the parentheses and what's outside of the parentheses. Second part of the practice is identify the property shown. So we have 8 plus 13x equals 13x plus 8. So here we're just changing the order again, and that would just be commutative property, okay? So thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot more about properties of real numbers.